When you consider the Klingons, the Empire has always been in disarray. Regardless of the era, the cracks of dissension and disorder are always seen within the society. In the past few episodes, this series has discussed Romulan attempts to destroy the Federation-Klingon alliance. Today we'll discuss a Romulan-inspired Klingon Civil War. As stated, this video is going to be analyzing the details of the Klingon Civil War. It won't be a complete breakdown of the war specifically, and in fact will more focus on the general reasons regarding why the war happened itself versus a blow-by-blow. Ultimately, the war was sparked when Gowron was ascending to become Chancellor of the Klingon High Council. His election was challenged by the House of Duras. Specifically, Lursa and B'Etor intended to install a puppet male child of the deceased family head, an illegitimate son of Duras. The cracks of the Klingon Empire during this time are intriguing. While the House of Duras is portrayed as the villains, what they want, if you had looked at it from a different point of view, would almost make them seem virtuous. We know at this time that the Klingon Empire dealt in several practices that are considered backwards by even 21st century standards. For instance, an entire house and members of a family are all disgraced due to the actions of one person within that family. There are also rules against women serving on the High Council. Things that are wanted by the heroes that most people today would look down upon. It's actually telling how influential House Duras was that they could overcome these traditions. It didn't matter what one member of the House of Duras had done historically. It was the House of Duras that stood by itself. Klingon warriors were willing to follow female Klingon tacticians. The House of Duras was, dare I say it, progressive. If not for the corrupt nature of the Duras sisters and their attempts to sell out the Klingon Empire to the Romulan Star Empire, the defeat of Gowron might have been warranted if we're all honest. However, as just noted, the Duras sisters and their boy Puppet would rely on Romulan support to fight Gowron. This actually isn't as controversial as the episode makes it seem. A large number of Klingons during the TNG era have wanted to be allied with the Romulans and forsake their Federation counterparts. We even see Picard say as much in the TNG episode The Drumhead. However, when we get to brass tacks, the war itself is somewhat lackluster when you consider what is provided. A large number of the Council, and indeed their fleets, would side with the Duras family against Gowron. However, Gowron and his advisors would be found to be better tacticians to that of Duras counterparts. The Romulan Star Empire would take advantage of this by offering more and more support, more and more services to Duras, making them more indebted. We would see Romulan commanders instead of Klingon commanders as time continued to move on. Starfleet, fearing that Romulans were attempting to install a puppet government, would deploy a fleet along Klingon space that would allow them to detect cloaked Romulan ships if they attempted to enter into the territory. I do think that the standoff between the Romulans and Starfleet continues to show the cracks within the Klingon Empire. While you could definitely spin it that the Federation is attempting to keep honor within the war by not allowing outsiders, I think it's more apparent that Starfleet is choosing sides and is manipulating the Klingons. It makes very little sense that a civil war has to be only within the government itself. If two sides claim legitimate leadership, then, in theory, they would be able to reach out to whomever they wanted. In fact, Gowron does this with the Federation, and let's make no mistake, Starfleet is aiding, albeit indirectly, Gowron's forces. And to take it further, based on dialogue, if Starfleet had decided to come in on the side of Gowron, you wouldn't see complaints by either Gowron himself or his forces to fight the Duras family. Starfleet wanted the Klingon Civil War to be an internal matter because the people in Starfleet thought that it should be. And again, Starfleet wants it to be an internal affair, but apparently internal affair means one side can't get an upper edge if it means looking at another government. And I feel confident we can all be assured that it's completely convenient and coincidence that Starfleet's actions chooses the side that will ensure a Starfleet-Klingon alliance. Anyway, sorry guys, I know it's rare for me to infer Starfleet corruption, so I'll just keep moving on. Starfleet would station its vessels along the border, as I've stated, and initiate a tachyon grid that could detect Romulan cloaked vessels. Sela, the daughter of a former member of the Enterprise D, who now was a leader within the Romulan Star Empire, long story, would attempt to keep Jean-Luc Picard and Starfleet off their guard. She knew that she would be a surprise to the captain and introduced herself. She would discuss her past a bit and then encourage him to leave. When this failed, she would attempt a ploy by creating a hole in the network, but go through on the opposite side in an attempt to get past the Federation blockade. This ruse would be discovered by Data and the Romulans would ultimately fail. Not wanting to openly be a part of the war, nor wanting to start a fight with the Federation, the Romulans would retreat, leaving the Duras family to their fate. Ironically, the Klingons wouldn't go to war with the Romulan Star Empire. This is interesting because the Romulans were caught trying to make the Klingons a puppet state. I guess Starfleet had been rubbing off on the Klingons after all. There is one piece I do want to discuss. We know that, thanks to Spock, the infrastructure of the Klingon Empire had been saved with Starfleet's support. This after the Klingon moon had been destroyed. What was meant as good faith may have ultimately been the wrong choice. With this aid, the Klingons would be able to rely on Federation support. This meant they wouldn't have to deal with internal struggles. It continued to allow a misogynistic, feudal empire to stay like it was. It's possible that if the Federation hadn't assisted, the Klingon Empire would have had to deal with its problems. It's an interesting conversation that will warrant more discussion in a different series. As had been noted, this would be the closest the Romulans would come to destabilizing the Klingon Federation alliance. From here, we would see them move on to other endeavors and operations. Stay tuned as the Romulans would attempt to invade a founding member of the Federation, Vulcan, a core planet that is within reach of the capital of the Federation and a stone's throw from several races known for their ability to wage war. And the Romulans think they would be able to do it with only 2,000 soldiers.